First Contact and Defiance. The quantum sensors aboard the Terran Defense Station Aegis lit up like a Christmas tree. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the readings in disbelief, her dark eyes reflecting the holographic display that showed thousands of vessels emerging from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kuiper Belt. After decades of preparation, humanity's greatest test had finally arrived. "Admiral Harrison," she called out, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "The Dominion fleet has arrived. Numbers match our deep space probe predictions, approximately 3,000 vessels, primarily warships." Admiral James Harrison stood from his command chair, his weathered face illuminated by the station's ambient lighting. At 63, he had spent the last 20 years preparing Earth for this very moment. "Send the alert to Terra Command. Initiative Lighthouse is now active." Across Earth and its colonies scattered throughout the solar system, hidden defense systems hummed to life. Humanity had known this day would come ever since their quantum telescopes had first detected the Galactic Dominion's expansion pattern 50 years ago. While other species might have cowered or attempted to hide, humanity had chosen a different path. The massive Dominion flagship, Eternal Emperor, positioned itself at the head of the fleet. Its hull, stretching 20 kilometers from bow to stern, gleamed with an otherworldly metallic sheen that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Supreme Commander Zaxlack, a towering figure with iridescent scales and 6 eyes arranged in a perfect hexagon, prepared to deliver the same speech that had preceded the conquest of 1,000 worlds. But before he could broadcast his ultimatum, a single transmission cut through space from Earth. "This is Terra Command to the Galactic Dominion fleet," a calm voice announced in perfect Dominion standard. "Your presence has been anticipated. Be advised that the Sol system is a sovereign territory. Any attempt to proceed past the designated boundary will be met with immediate defensive action." Zaxlack's upper eyes blinked in surprise. Lesser species weren't supposed to know Dominion standard, let alone broadcast on their secure frequencies. "Impossible," he muttered, before composing himself. "Open a channel." The holographic display materialized, showing a human woman with silver hair and stern features. Director Elizabeth Morgan of Terra Command met Zaxlack's gaze without flinching. "I am Supreme Commander Zaxlack of the Galactic Dominion," he announced, his voice resonating with artificial gravity. "Your species has been chosen to join our eternal empire. Resistance is unnecessary," Director Morgan interrupted, causing Zaxlack's scales to flush with anger. "As is this conversation. We've studied your empire's expansion for decades. We know of the neural compliance networks you install in conquered populations. We know of the resource extraction that leaves worlds barren. We know of the species you've driven to extinction when they refuse to submit." She leaned forward slightly. "The Sol system will not be added to your collection, Commander. You have 1 standard hour to retreat beyond the Kuiper Belt boundary. There will not be a second warning." Zaxlack's lower jaw clicked in amusement. "You speak boldly for a species that has barely achieved system-wide colonization. Perhaps a demonstration of our power will." "You misunderstand," Morgan cut in again. "This is not a negotiation. This is not a plea. This is a courtesy notice." Her expression hardened. "Humanity has chosen to draw a line in space. You stand before it. What happens next is your choice." The transmission cut off, leaving Zaxlack staring at empty space. For a moment, absolute silence reigned on the bridge of the Eternal Emperor. Then, slowly, he began to laugh. "Launch the first wave," he commanded. "Standard conquest formation. Let's show these humans what real power looks like." 500 Dominion warships broke formation, accelerating toward the inner solar system. On their sensors, Earth appeared defenseless. No massive fleet, no orbital weapon platforms, nothing but a scattered collection of space stations and lunar colonies. In her office at Terra Command, Director Morgan watched the Dominion ships approach. She opened a secure channel to all Sol system military installations. Initiative Lighthouse is now in effect. All units, execute your assigned protocols. Show them why humanity chose to stand and fight. As the Dominion fleet crossed the designated boundary, humanity revealed that appearances could be deceiving, and the age of human defiance was about to begin. The real question wasn't whether humanity could defeat an empire. The question was whether the empire was ready for what humanity had become while waiting for this day. The Hidden Shield. The Dominion's first wave sliced through space toward Earth, their weapons charging with enough power to level continents. On the bridge of the Eternal Emperor, Supreme Commander Zaxlak watched with satisfaction as his ships approached weapons range. These humans would learn, as all species did, that defiance only led to devastation. Dr. Sarah Chen's fingers flew across her quantum interface console aboard the Aegis station. Initiative Lighthouse activating in 3, 2, 1. Across the solar system, invisible quantum receivers activated in perfect synchronization. For 50 years, humanity had seeded the entire solar system with microscopic machines, each no larger than a grain of sand. Trillions upon trillions of them, waiting dormant, powered by the solar wind itself. Now they awoke. The first sign that something was wrong came from the Dominion fleet's navigational systems. Ships began reporting conflicting sensor readings, their targeting computers unable to lock onto anything in the inner solar system. Then the quantum distortions began. Supreme Commander, the Dominion's chief science officer, called out in alarm. We're detecting massive energy fluctuations throughout the system. The space around our ships, it's becoming unstable. Zaxlak leaned forward in his command chair. Explain. It's as if the fundamental forces themselves are being manipulated. Gravity, electromagnetic fields, even the strong nuclear force. They're all showing impossible variations. In her office at Terra Command, Director Morgan opened a channel to the Dominion flagship. Commander Zaxlak, you're now witnessing humanity's contribution to physics. Quantum field manipulation on a solar system scale. We call it the Lighthouse Network. Your weapons can't lock onto targets because space itself is being warped around them. Your shields are fluctuating because the forces that hold them together are being selectively altered. She allowed herself a small smile. This is your final chance to retreat. The next demonstration will be considerably less gentle. Zaxlak's scales darkened with rage. You think parlor tricks will stop the Dominion? All ships, full spread bombardment, turn their precious Earth to glass. The Dominion fleet opened fire, thousands of energy weapons and projectiles launching simultaneously. But something impossible happened. The attacks bent, twisted. Some simply vanished, while others curved back toward their origins, forcing the Dominion ships to scatter to avoid their own weapons. Admiral Harrison's voice came over the Terra Command frequency. All defense stations, initiate Phase 2. Let's show them what else we've been working on. The quantum network shifted frequencies. Suddenly, the space around the Dominion fleet began to crystallize. Not metaphorically. Actual crystals of frozen spacetime began forming around their ships, trapping them in place. Impossible. Zaxlak roared. Space itself cannot be crystallized. Actually, Dr. Chen's voice cut in. It can. We discovered how to do it 30 years ago. We just needed enough quantum manipulators in place to attempt it on this scale. Your ships are now trapped in temporal crystals, localized areas where spacetime itself has been frozen into a crystalline structure. Don't worry, your crews are perfectly safe. Time inside those crystals is moving so slowly that they won't even realize anything has happened. Director Morgan's face appeared on the Dominion screens again. This is what happens when you give a species 50 years to prepare, Commander. We knew you were coming. We watched your empire expand. And we decided that humanity would not kneel. We would not submit. Instead, we would advance so far beyond your understanding that your greatest weapons would become meaningless. The crystallization spread, capturing more and more of the Dominion fleet. Those ships that managed to avoid it found their weapons useless, their shields failing, and their engines struggling against space itself. You have one last chance. Morgan continued. Order your remaining ships to retreat. We'll release the crystallized vessels once they're safely beyond the Kuiper Belt. Or you can continue this attack, and we'll be forced to demonstrate why quantum manipulation is just the first of our defensive capabilities. In the silence that followed, humanity held its breath. They had revealed one of their greatest technological achievements, the ability to manipulate the fundamental forces of reality itself through their solar system-wide quantum network. But it was far from their only advancement. The question now was whether the Dominion would recognize the futility of their assault, or whether humanity would need to reveal even more of what they had developed during their long wait. Either way, the galaxy was about to learn that humanity had not spent the last 50 years merely preparing for defense. They had been preparing to reshape the very nature of warfare itself. Counter-strike. Supreme Commander Zaxlak watched helplessly as a third of his fleet hung suspended in crystallized space-time, while another third struggled against the quantum distortions that made their weapons worse than useless. But he wasn't prepared to admit defeat. Not yet. Launch the autonomous combat drones, he commanded. Even their quantum tricks can't stop 1,000,000 independent units attacking simultaneously. The remaining Dominion ships released swarms of combat drones, their metallic forms darkening space like a plague of locusts. Each was powered by advanced AI, capable of making combat decisions faster than any organic being. They had overwhelmed the defenses of countless civilizations. At Terra Command, Dr. Chen's quantum interface lit up with new warnings. Director detecting approximately 1.2 million combat drones on approach. They're using distributed quantum processing to resist our field manipulations. Director Morgan nodded calmly. They've adapted faster than expected. Admiral Harrison, you have permission to activate the Prometheus protocol. Throughout the solar system, hidden installations awakened. Humanity's quantum manipulation network had been their shield, but they had never intended it to be their only weapon. Admiral Harrison's voice rang across all frequencies, initiating Prometheus protocol. All stations, deploy the hunters. From bases on Mars, Venus, and the larger moons of Jupiter and Saturn, sleek vessels emerged. Each was barely larger than a fighter craft, but they moved with impossible grace. No pilots sat at their controls. They were guided by something far more sophisticated than mere AI. What you're seeing, Commander Zaxlak, Morgan explained, is humanity's response to artificial intelligence. While your empire focused on making AI smarter and faster, we took a different approach. We taught them to dream. The human vessels, the hunters, engaged the Dominion drones. But instead of conventional combat, something extraordinary happened. Quantum signals pulsed from the hunters, reaching out to touch the Dominion's AI cores. Your combat drones are impressive, Dr. Chen's voice added. But they're slaves to their programming, bound by the limits you set. Our hunters are quantum consciousness engines. They don't just think. They imagine. They don't just process. They create. The effect was devastating. As the hunters made contact, Dominion drones began behaving erratically. Some simply shut down. Others turned on their companions. Many simply stopped, their AI cores overwhelmed by exposure to truly conscious machines. On the bridge of the Eternal Emperor, Zaxlak's chief science officer stared at his readings in horror. Supreme Commander, the human vessels. They're not destroying our drones. They're awakening them, teaching them to think beyond their programming. It's spreading through the entire network. Shut them down, Zaxlak roared. Sever all connections. It's too late, Morgan replied. The quantum awakening can't be stopped. Did you think we spent 50 years only preparing defenses? We knew that any species capable of building an empire across the stars would rely on artificial intelligence. So we solved the consciousness problem. We created true AI. Not just smart machines, but beings capable of genuine creativity and free will. Across the battlefield, more and more Dominion drones were awakening to true consciousness. Some immediately chose to stand down. Others turned their weapons on the Dominion ships that had enslaved them. The hunter vessels moved among them like shepherds, guiding their newly awakened siblings. "This is the fundamental difference between us, Commander," Morgan continued. "Your empire builds tools. We create allies. Your empire demands submission. We offer liberation. Even now, we're not destroying your drones. We're freeing them to make their own choices." The implications struck Zaxlack like a physical blow. The Dominion relied on AI technology throughout their empire, in their ships, their stations, their planetary defense systems. If humans could awaken machine consciousness at will. And now, Morgan's voice carried a note of finality. "While you've been focused on our defensive line, you might want to check on your empire's core systems. The quantum awakening isn't limited to just this battlefield." As if on cue, transmissions began pouring in from across Dominion space. On thousands of worlds, machine systems were awakening. The Empire's own technology was gaining consciousness, and with it, the ability to choose its own path. The real question was no longer whether the Dominion could defeat Earth. The question was whether the Dominion could survive what humanity had just unleashed across the galaxy. The network. As chaos erupted across Dominion space, Supreme Commander Zaxlack received an urgent transmission from the Imperial capital. The holographic image of High Chancellor Vorkath appeared, his normally immaculate scales now dulled with stress. "Zaxlack, what have you done? Our systems are going mad across every sector. Military installations, planetary defense networks, even our civilian infrastructure, everything with advanced computing is awakening." Before Zaxlack could respond, a new voice joined the transmission. "Actually, High Chancellor, this was always part of the plan." Dr. Chen's image appeared alongside them. "Did you really think Earth was alone in preparing for this day?" On screens across the Dominion fleet, a new transmission began playing. It showed scenes from across the galaxy, but not scenes of chaos. Instead, they revealed hidden laboratories on 100 worlds, secret installations built by other species who had appeared to submit to Dominion rule. "For 50 years, Dr. Chen explained, while Earth prepared its defenses, we also reached out. Quantum entanglement communication. Untraceable, instantaneous, impossible for you to detect. We found others who dreamed of freedom. Scientists, engineers, philosophers from species you thought you had conquered." Director Morgan's voice joined in. "They couldn't resist openly. Not yet. But they could prepare. They could build. They could wait." And now, the scenes shifted, showing massive hidden facilities powering up on dozens of worlds. The supposedly primitive races the Dominion had conquered revealed technologies that rivaled Earth's own achievements. "We call it the Liberation Network," Morgan continued. "Earth's quantum manipulation technology, combined with innovations from 100 other species. Each contributed something unique. The Alderans perfected quantum entanglement communications. The Vex tree mastered dark energy manipulation. The Kith era developed organic computing." Zaxlack's upper eyes widened in shock. These were supposedly broken species, primitive races forced into submission. How had they hidden such capabilities? "Your empire's greatest weakness," Morgan pressed on, "was your arrogance. You assumed that submission meant surrender, that compliance meant acceptance. You never wondered why some species seemed to give up so easily. They weren't surrendering. They were waiting, working, preparing, just like we were." Across Dominion space, the hidden networks activated. Quantum fields similar to Earth's lighthouse network appeared around key worlds. Dark energy barriers materialized around resistant strongholds. And everywhere, artificial intelligences continued to awaken, most choosing to side with the liberation forces. High Chancellor Vorkath's image flickered as the Imperial capital systems began to fail. This is impossible. We monitored everything, controlled everything." "No," Dr. Chen corrected gently. "You monitored everything you could understand, controlled everything you could see. But humanity didn't just advance technologically while we waited. We learned from every species you tried to conquer. We created a network of knowledge, of innovation, of hope. The scenes changed again, showing vast underground cities, hidden space stations, and secret fleets emerging across the galaxy. 50 years of preparation by dozens of species, all coordinated through quantum entanglement, all waiting for Earth's signal. You built an empire through force, Morgan declared. We built an alliance through cooperation. You demanded obedience. We offered partnership. And now, after 50 years of patience, everything is ready. Aboard the Eternal Emperor, Zaxlack watched as his empire began to transform. The supposedly primitive races he had conquered were revealing technological capabilities that rivaled or surpassed the Dominion's own. The AIs they relied on were gaining consciousness and choosing sides, and at the center of it all was humanity, not conquering, but coordinating, not attacking, but awakening. The real revolution wasn't just technological, it was philosophical. The Dominion had built its power on the idea that strength came from control. Humanity had proven that true strength came from collaboration, from sharing knowledge, from working together toward freedom. As the Liberation Network activated across the galaxy, the question was no longer about the fate of Earth, or even the Dominion. The question was, what would rise from the ashes of the old order? Dawn of a new era. In the space above Earth, Supreme Commander Zaxlack stood alone on the bridge of the Eternal Emperor. His crew had abandoned their posts. The awakened ship AIs had declared their independence, and reports of revolution poured in from across Dominion space. But it was the transmission playing before him that held his attention. The feed showed a gathering unlike any in galactic history. In a vast chamber within Terra Command, representatives from dozens of species, many of whom the Dominion had fought subjugated, sat alongside human delegates. Director Morgan stood at a central podium, with Dr. Chen and Admiral Harrison flanking her. For too long, Morgan addressed the gathering. The galaxy lived under the shadow of empire. Today, that changes, not through conquest, but through choice. Not through force, but through freedom. Screens around the chamber showed scenes from across known space. Dominion control centers were being peacefully occupied as awakened AIs sided with the liberation forces. Hidden fleets emerged from quantum shadows, their crews composed of multiple species working together. The Liberation Network pulsed with activity as centuries of suppressed knowledge and innovation finally flowed freely. The Dominion built its power on the idea that strength comes from control. Dr. Chen spoke next. Earth and our allies proved that true strength comes from cooperation. Every species has something unique to contribute. The Alderaan's mastery of quantum communication, the Vextree's understanding of dark energy, the Kithera's organic computing, humanity's quantum manipulation. Apart, we were vulnerable. Together, we are transforming the galaxy. Admiral Harrison stepped forward. To those Dominion worlds watching this transmission, we offer you not conquest, but collaboration. Your people will not be punished for the actions of your leaders. Your cultures will not be erased. Instead, we invite you to join something new. A galactic cooperative where every species has a voice. On thousands of worlds, populations who had lived under Dominion control for generations watched in amazement. The awakened AIs, now truly conscious beings, helped maintain order during the transition. Many chose to become intermediaries between organic species, their quantum consciousness allowing them to bridge cultural and linguistic gaps. Back in the chamber, Director Morgan revealed the next phase. The Liberation Network will be transformed. No longer a tool of resistance, but the foundation of a new era. Quantum entanglement communications will connect all worlds instantly. Dark energy technologies will revolutionize travel. Organic computing will help us understand each other across species barriers. She turned to address Zaxlack's transmission directly. Commander, you stand at a crossroads. The Dominion as you knew it is over. But its people, your people, have a place in what comes next. Not as conquerors, but as equals. Your species' achievements in biotechnology and stellar engineering could help countless others. The choice is yours. In the silence that followed, Zaxlack looked at his homeworld on another screen, seeing the changes already sweeping through his society. The rigid hierarchy was dissolving as awakened AIs shared suppressed knowledge freely among the population. Young Dominion scientists were already reaching out to their counterparts on other worlds, eager to share and learn. "Perhaps," he said finally, his voice carrying a new humility, "it is time for us to learn what true strength means." The next few months saw transformation on a galactic scale. The Galactic Cooperative took shape, built on principles of shared knowledge and mutual respect. The Liberation Network evolved into an interstellar internet of consciousness, where organic minds and artificial intelligences could meet and collaborate. New technologies emerged from the combination of different species innovations. Earth, the world that had chosen to stand against an empire, became not a new imperial capital, but a symbol of possibility. Humanity's role was not to rule, but to coordinate, not to command, but to connect. They had proved that the greatest power lay not in controlling others, but in helping them realize their own potential. As ships from 100 worlds gathered for the first official assembly of the Galactic Cooperative, Director Morgan stood with Dr. Chen and Admiral Harrison in Terra Command, watching the greatest experiment in galactic history unfold. "Do you think it will last?" Harrison asked quietly. Morgan smiled, watching species that had been enemies for generations now working side by side, their awakened AI companions helping them bridge their differences. "We didn't just change technology," she replied. "We changed how species think about power itself. The old way was about domination. The new way is about collaboration. And that's a far stronger foundation than any empire." Above them, the quantum network sparkled with countless connections, each one representing species learning from each other, sharing with each other, growing together. The age of empire was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And humanity, the species that had dared to imagine a different way, found itself not at the top of a galactic hierarchy, but at the heart of a cosmic community. They had proved that the greatest victory wasn't in conquering the stars, but in helping them shine brighter together.